If any of you like watching anime or any kind of fantasy series, it's not uncommon to find a character that is usually termed the strongest. But what does it actually mean to be the strongest? Does it mean someone who possesses the most physical strength, the most destructive superpowers that can level an entire city? No matter what your definition is, I think anyone can agree that Shanks from One Piece is one of the most powerful characters in the whole world of One Piece. I'm not going to sit here and glaze these characters. That has been done enough. Here's why I personally think, and this is just an opinion, here's why I personally think he outshines his peers in terms of strength and kind of exists in a tier of their own. Picture this. You live in a world run by pirates. You're a young boy named Luffy. You admire pirates, you love them, you love their philosophies, you love their ideals, and you're hanging out with one of them, one of the most infamous ones. His name is Shanks, and he's an infamous pirate hanging out at a local bar in your city. Suddenly, out of nowhere, this thug looks scary, looks gruff, probably very smelly as well, shows up demanding alcohol from the barista, who has to deny since Shanks and his crew finished the last stock. Now, obviously, having a thug and a group of pirates in your bar isn't a very pleasant experience if you're just a normal barista. So situations are already tense, and you're just a small kid, you're probably scared, you're nervous, when suddenly you hear,
これでよかったらやるよ。まだ1000も開けてない。
you look around and see it's your pirate friend Shanks offering his last bottle of alcohol to this thug. The thug refuses, very violently so, smashes the bottle to bits, spilling alcohol everywhere. And now the whole place is a mess. And you, a young Luffy, you get angry. How dare the thug treat your friend this way? But to your surprise, your calm, collected friend offers to clean up the mess that this thug made. And while you're sitting there already confused, you see the thug spilling even more alcohol on the floor as he laughs and walks away from the bar with his men, as if he was the winner in the situation. You know very well that your friend Shanks could have easily demolished this nobody, so you get angry at him instead, questioning why he didn't act like a real man, why he didn't fight back. But the only response you get is laughter. Not just from your pirate friend Shanks, but from his entire crew, which leaves you even more confused and angry. So later on, you decide to take things into your own hands and decide to confront the thugs for how they treated your friends, which did not end up very well. But hey, your pirate friend shows up again, and he's all like, hey, let him go. Nah. And one of the other thugs that was with him threatens Shanks with a gun, and Shanks proceeds to land one of the coldest lines ever in the history of anime. Now that you've drawn your gun, put your life on it. I'm saying pistols aren't for threats, they're for actions. Shanks' crewmate, Lucky shoots the thug. This man seriously cannot stop aura farming, can he? But anyways, this one episode, or chapter if you read the manga, made Shanks one of my all-time favorites in One Piece. And he still remains to this day. These very few actions give us an insight of what kind of character Shanks really is. He isn't someone who needs to boast about how great or powerful he is. He has the strength to prove it. He has the confidence, the pragmatism, and the crew to prove it. In fact, Shanks is so inspirational that it made future emperors like Luffy looking up to him, entire islands looking to him for protection. He is also an emperor. Back in the bar, his crew weren't laughing at him, they were laughing with him. His actions are carried out almost as if they're his legacy, as we see later in Luffy when he refuses to pick a fight with a lesser pirate who keeps mocking him, while Nami, who berates Luffy for not fighting back, parallels the young Luffy from all those years back. Avatar: The Last Airbender is basically a show about some bald kid who harnesses the power of the elements to beat up some evil old man who can fart fire out of his legs to fly around. I'm just kidding, it's an amazing show with amazing characters, all of which deserve their own dedicated videos. That is your cue to subscribe. Now, unfortunately, if you haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender yourselves, it's a little difficult for me to analyze this character without spoilers, so here's a short, brief overview of this show. The fictional world of Avatar consists of 4 main powers: fire, water, earth, and air. Basically, the elements. Anyone possessing any one of these elemental powers usually is known as an insert element here, bender. and can manipulate and control those specific elements in their environment. Now, the Avatar is a legendary bender who is a master of all the four elements and serves as a guardian to their world and maintains the balance in it. Kind of like their own version of the Dragon Warrior from Kung Fu Panda. In the series, we follow the journey of our main character.
My name is Ang.
Nah, I'm just kidding, his actual name is Aang, who is supposed to be the next Avatar and struggles to take on the mantle of being the Avatar and the responsibilities that come along with it. However, throughout the series, Aang grows, both physically and emotionally, eventually embracing his duty as the Avatar to finally take down the Lord of the Fire Nation, who has been planning to take over the world. So now that we are done with the recap, let's dig a little deep. Now, I have mentioned that throughout the series, Aang does eventually grow and embrace being the Avatar, but I did not mention that he is constantly being hunted down by his rival and eventually turned friend, Zuko. Zuko is the banished son of the Fire Lord Ozai, and after his banishment is cursed with the desire to capture the Avatar to get his honor back. The person who accompanies Zuko throughout his journey is none other than his and our Uncle Iroh. Something most of you might have noticed is that a wise mentor character in a show or a movie is usually on the side of the good guys, like Master Oogway, Yoda, or etc. However, Avatar doesn't take this conventional route. Iroh is actually introduced to us as mostly a neutral character and can even be considered an antagonist during the early episodes, as he's on the same side as Zuko, a Fire Nation soldier who helps Zuko hunt down the Avatar. Later on in the series, we find out that he used to be the general of the entire Fire Nation army and took control of an entire nation for multiple days. However, due to certain circumstances, he turned over a new leaf. The same Iroh that once had everything a normal person desired, now took pride in living in poverty, making tea and bothering his nephew Zuko, to whom he kind of serves as a moral compass throughout the series. In fact, at times, Iroh is also happily seen offering advice to Aang when he asks for it, someone that his nephew considered an enemy at the time. Not just because Iroh understood the big picture and understood that the Avatar's role is bigger than Iroh himself, but also because he's just a kind person who's been through it all and sees that a young boy needs his help. Iroh has seen it all and been through it all. He has the experience. The same can be said about when his nephew Zuko, who constantly struggles to make the right choice, many times lashing out at his uncle in the process. However, Iroh never seems to mind, as he is empathetic enough to understand what his nephew is going through and still proceeds to offer guidance whenever possible, whether it be through direct or indirect means. However, this does not mean that Iroh is a pushover by any means, as we see that even in his older years, he is still strong enough to shoot flames from his mouth, pummel multiple Fire Nation soldier guards, and stop higher level soldiers like Zhao with absolute ease. I think in an era where the idea of masculinity and strength is sold to young men as a product, I think everyone can use an Iroh in their lives. But you know what really makes Iroh the GOAT? No matter how much his nephew yells at him and berates him, Iroh's always there, believing in him, offering him guidance whenever he can. He never gives up on Zuko, even when Zuko gives up on himself. But there's more than just offering moral support that makes Iroh truly one of the top tiers. Throughout this video, yes, I have talked about how important it is to be someone of strong ideals, firm beliefs, but to be the strongest, you have to be able to physically back it up as well. This balance is what Ozai, the main villain of the Avatar series, lacked, only focusing on physical and superficial power, trying to reign over people through fear, which combined with his arrogance, led to his defeat. So in conclusion, I think here's what I'm trying to say about being the strongest. The strongest is somebody who can laugh, who can joke, who's chill, but at the same time, when required, you can lead entire crews and armies, protect those that you care about, and kick some serious butt. Thank you. Ever wonder how the same anime that does something like this
Hey, I know. I'll use my trusty frying pan as a drying.
also ends up doing something like this?
Started looking at what's the same instead of always looking at what's different. Well, who knows?
This is Pokemon, the same anime that told me that you can leave your house at 10 years old and at the same time solve my existential crisis. And which particular movie did that for me? Well, say hello to Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. Released in 1998, This movie follows the journey of Ash and his friends in the Kanto region when they receive a letter from a Dragonite inviting them to a mysterious unknown island in the middle of, well, God knows where. Ash, being the giga chad he is like heck yeah and assembles at the port to take off the island. Despite the terrible weather, Ash's main character plot, armor, allows him and a few other trainers to reach the island somehow. There they are invited by none other than Mewtwo himself, joined by his 3 clone Pokemon, the completely evolved forms of the 3 original starters, Charizard, Blastoise and Venusaur. We find out that Mewtwo wants revenge against Pokemon trainers and humanity in general because of his past being a creation of Team Rocket. After a long fought hard battle, I'm just kidding, it was a one-sided beatdown. Mewtwo ends up capturing all of the trainers' Pokemon, but Ash, being the main character that he is, goes after his Pokemon. Anyways, yay, Mew's here and Ash ends up breaking out of Mewtwo's cloning lab with all of the Pokemon. After a clash between the originals and the clones, Ash decides to jump in between 2 legendaries but realizes that he is out of plot armor literally the hard way. But nah man, for real, this scene really did make me cry when I was a small child. Then the Pokemon start crying and the tears bring Ash back to life through freeze, thaw, weathering, never mind. Mewtwo realizes his mistakes and pulls off one of the biggest hit and run cases with his entire gang as he and Mew run away. There's the recap. Now, if you're like me and never thought about this movie twice, then you realize that this movie had a lot of themes discussing identity and control. Think about it, Mewtwo was created solely from Mew's DNA to be someone's weapon and achievement. Because after all he's been through, this finally made him feel like he has something under his control. But honestly, I personally feel like under all of this violence, Mewtwo just has this desire to belong, to be loved, not used. We can see this reinforced in Mewtwo's, well, I guess you can say vision or dream that he has when he's still going through his birthing stage, where we see sadness when the other clones and his friend leave him, as Mewtwo is left as the only successful clone. This feeling of things being out of control is something that humans feel as well. What me? So I don't feel these things. So yeah, but back to the point, humans are creatures who love being in control of things, and the second ever something is out of place, they freak. So, what do we do with this feeling of helplessness? Well, according to Mew, you just don't give a shit. 3. Mewtwo's intimidating demeanor is contrasted by Mew's playful, jolly demeanor. While Mewtwo plans on destroying the world, Mew does things like this. However, Mew's behavior and actions don't just serve as comedic relief, they are also things that define his character. Mew and Mewtwo are arguably at the same level of power, but their attitudes are so different towards life, it makes them seem completely different. Little digression, I was recently reading this book by former Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. In summary, this book talks a lot about the philosophy of Stoicism. It has many profound quotes and lessons, but this is one of my favorites. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find inner strength. For those who remember the last scene during the resolution of the movie, Mewtwo realizes this thing in his own way. I see now that the circumstances of your birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Mewtwo says this after being moved by the tears of the Pokemon bringing Ash back to life. You could say that Mewtwo was also moved by Ash's actions, as Ash was well aware that he wasn't powerful enough to stop the 2 legendaries from fighting, yet he tried to. Because at that moment, that's all he could do. That's all he could control. Mewtwo was Mew's foil throughout the movie. However, after his epiphany, he leaves with all his clone Pokemon, choosing to be their protector and guardian. Something that he actually has control over. One more thing to notice is that Mew is also a firm believer in the notion of controlling whatever is possible. It's just that he is more, well, playful while doing it. Mew is also a stoic. But unlike the modern, corrupted interpretation of Stoicism, Mew and Mewtwo as well embrace the philosophy of true ancient Stoicism. Thank you.